What's good, everybody? It's your man Big Dom, host of the True Players Podcast, hitting you with the upfront, blatantly honest, in your face, no punches held opinions on sports, current events, relationships, and many other topics along the way. Check out this next episode of my podcast.
You can never be too G'd up for love. Take a little flight. Get lost in love. Let's go. Ma, it's no problem to hold you, tongue stroke you, please you like I'm supposed to. Touch spots that ain't ever been touched, and I won't stop till both these squirrels get they nuts. Hey, you know it's good when we freakin', king size squeaking after I ease in. If you was with me, baby, 24/7, best believe that every single day would be a sweet day. Girl, you sweeter than a cheesecake. If you want beef, prophecy will be a beefcake. I make love to you till you fall asleep, leave you with sweet dreams between the sheets.
Was the night before that night. I was born on that day, but not last night. Once upon a time, I had my cash right.
What's good, everybody? It's your man Big Dom coming live and at you with another True Players Podcast episode with my brother Matthew from Jacobin Sports Show and Knicks Bleav Pod. We're here to talk to you about not about Knicks. We're talking about the struggling New York Mets as we're both watching the game right now as we speak. They're down 11.
Talk about the other blue and orange today.
Yes. They're down 11-2. Me and Matt, we're going to discuss what's going wrong with the team and, in our opinions, what could we do if we were part of the organization to try to rectify the situation. I'm not saying it's late, but it will get late very soon.
Mm-hmm.
So, Matthew, just introduce yourself to the people, let them know what it is.
I literally earlier today was thinking about doing this episode, and I thought to myself, like, because I really haven't been sweating the Mets. I haven't been happy, but I've been like, it's so early. It's so early. It's so early. And then today when I thought about it, I was like, it's June.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost the middle of June. It's not that early anymore. Now, we should acknowledge, like, the Mets came into the day with 99 games left, and they were 3 games out of the last wild card spot. So there's plenty of time. They're behind the Pirates. I'm not really, so things will change, I'm guessing. But what's concerning, I think especially, is I don't think this is fair, but I think it's true. Last season, they were great for 159 games.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just slumped at that very end to Atlanta. And then they lost to the Padres. And that was basically it. Their whole season got kind of tanked because of that. But it left a bad taste in people's mouths. Whether it's fair or not, it left a bad taste. Mm-hmm. And then in the offseason, okay, you lose DeGrom. I would not have given him what Texas did. I thought the Mets were smart. And you see it now. DeGrom's out. Yeah. Again, he's going to have Tommy John again. That was the right move. But you can say, like, well, we replaced him with Verlander. And last winter, that's probably the best you could do. Like, Verlander. But, like, Jacob DeGrom a year ago, like, at his peak, is a different proposition at the top of your rotation than Justin Verlander is, like, at age 40. Mm-hmm. They go through the winter. They make nice moves. But then Edwin Diaz is lost for the year during the WBC. Mm-hmm. Verlander's not healthy when the season starts. Scherzer has finger stuff going on. These are not young pitchers. You assume this kind of thing will probably continue with them. Mm-hmm. Now Alonso's out for like maybe 3 weeks, maybe a month, after getting hit by a 97-mile-an-hour fastball on the wrist. So what I'm getting at is that I don't think the situation is like, we were talking before off the air about like the 93 Mets and the worst team money can buy. We're not there. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not there at all. But you need something to give you a reason to feel like, okay, like, I know this team has it figured out. And they have no spark. They're not just losing. You can lose. You can lose game. You can. Baseball is different than any other sport. You can lose a baseball game and still feel good. For example, your pitcher just came off the DL and he throws 7 strong innings, and you lose 2-1, but like you feel good because all right, we got our guy back. Like we know, or you lose a game, but like your slugger breaks out of a slump. Now you know he's back. You feel good. This team hasn't really given you. And if you remember last year, the Mets came from behind all the time in a million different ways to win those 101 games. It's not just that they're having a disappointing season. Is there anything, honestly, right now, if the season ended today, is there anything you've seen in the Mets team, or what have you seen in the Mets that makes you say, all right, despite the season being a disappointment, I at least am excited about this? Is there anything for you?
To be honest, but I'll be honest with you, no. Because one thing, not one thing. Let's start with the Pete Alonso non-extension before the season starts. I thought that was paramount, and they didn't get it done. Two, who's that big time pitcher coming out of the minor leagues for this team?
Mm-hmm.
This team, in its history, has prided themselves on drafting pitchers, working through the ranks and coming up to the major leagues. We had Good and Seaver. We had the Generation K with Pulsifer, Isringhausen, and Wilson. We got DeGrom. We had Matt Harvey. We got Syndergaard via trade, but he also came through our system briefly. He became a starting pitcher. You know, we don't have that. We don't have that pitcher coming up in the minor leagues. And as a matter of fact, the pitcher that we did have, I forgot the name of his name. He was traded away for Darren, I Bleav, Vogelbach.
Oh, I remember they had. So again, this is weird. I don't blame them. They drafted. Oh Christ, I think his name was Kumar Rocker, out of Vanderbilt, and they didn't sign him. He ended up going back in the draft because he's a client, and they were concerned about something in his medical records. And Boris insisted there's nothing there. But the Mets didn't give him what he wanted. He went back into the draft. He was taken by, it's either Texas or Boston. I can't remember which one. And now he's out for the year. He's got some kind of like health problem. So what you bring up, I think, is worth looking at also, because when Cohen took over this team and Eppler and Showalter came, one of the Mets issues that everybody knew was they don't have minor league depth at this point. They had high-end depth, like Alvarez, Batty, Mauricio, Viento, like all those guys, but not depth. They have to build that up. So the part of the problem is there, you have to spend all this money on veterans for roles that you might normally give to a younger, cheaper player to learn on the job, but like they don't have that depth. So like you have to get Eduardo Escobar. And he had a fight. He struggled some of last season. He had a good September. But when it came time, for example, and I was proud of them for doing this, but when the Mets faced a roster decision and they ended up getting rid of Thomas Nido, who they just gave it, I mean, they designated him for assignment. They just signed him in the offseason to a 2-year deal. He had to go. And part of the reason he had to go on the positive side is Alvarez has been so good, you have to keep him. But the negative of it is the Mets had a number of veterans that like they should have cut or could have cut. Like they had a number of candidates. Vogelbach is someone you could have cut. They're standing by him, okay. But like if they had cut Vogelbach, nobody would complain.
No.
If they had cut Escobar, they could have dropped Escobar. They could have said, "Look, Brett Batty, the job is yours." Nobody would really complain. The fact that a team with this much payroll and these many veterans had so many players that could have been dropped without you blinking is not a good sign. Now, last year, they seemed to manage without the depth. I think this year, look, you lost your best pitcher. You lost your best starter. You lost your best closer. That's tough. Like, that's tough for anybody. It doesn't matter what the money is. Like, that's tough. Question, for you now is, first of all, let's take it from the top down. How do you feel now versus a year or two ago about your owner? And how do you feel now versus a year ago about your GM and your manager?
I'm going to start with the owner. I'm fine with the owner. But his mindset has to change. He has to stop being a fan and start becoming an owner. Like,
what is that going to look like to you?
having better people to run the team.
So perhaps not Billy Eppler.
I thought he was horrible. I think he's horrible now,
I mean, the thing
and
is,
I think. Mhm.
go ahead. No, you go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think you got to kick the tires. You got to find a way to convince Omar to come back into this organization, and he should be the one rebuilding that minor league system.
I'll never complain about Omar Minaya being employed by the Mets ever.
Because truth be told, 2015 was all his drafted players.
A lot of them were.
That was the core.
A lot of them were, which is not the first time in Met history that a lot of their players on a good team were often picked by Minaya.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that? So we talked about this at the very end last time. Do you think that Eppler has failed because he hasn't done a good enough? Like, I look at Eppler, and this may not be fair. It's just my assumption from the outside. But when you have an owner that will just bust out his checkbook, my assumption is that that's pretty much Billy Eppler's job. Like, if Cohen wants somebody, you go and get them.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have to he doesn't have to work the way that Steve Phillips did back in the day when the Mets had a big payroll, but not like the biggest. Do you think Eppler, if he's failed, is that on him? Is that on Cohen? Because like you said, like the owner being a fan, I feel like the Mets, the last few off seasons made it clear that there were other people they wanted. They wanted Stearns from Milwaukee. They spoke to Theo Epstein right when Cohen first took over. And there is a vibe. I think this is fair and worth remembering. Remember that there was a lot of animosity against this owner when he took over, precisely because other teams were afraid, because the Mets have not been a big market team in 25 years, at least. When Cohen took over, one of the things people noticed right away was how many teams would not even give him permission to talk to their executives. And normally that's just a formality. Like normally in baseball, if you want to talk to someone, as long as it's an equal or higher position, teams will always let you do it. Nobody has let Cohen talk to anybody. So I do feel like he's being victimized more than probably, certainly the Wilpons. But it's weird to have a team where I'll hear what you think in a second. I like Buck Showalter a lot. Like I think he's a great manager. I have an owner who will spend anything, so I'm cool with that. I have a general manager that I don't have any vibe on at all. I don't know anything about this man. I don't know his philosophy. I don't know his authority. I don't know his autonomy. I don't know what Billy Eppler does. And I don't think that's healthy for an organization. Whatever you think of the Yankees, you've always known what Brian Cashman does. Even when the Yankees were just spending a lot of money, Cashman still, he had a presence and he had an approach. I don't know anything about Billy Eppler. Nothing.
But
you mentioned Omar. You know certain kinds of players that Omar wants. You know certain kind of skills that Omar values. I have no idea. I don't know what Billy Eppler thinks about anything.
And I don't know either. And I feel I'm gonna give you this to think about, man. I'm not a fan of anybody who comes from Oakland in the Billy Bean system. It does not work in the New York market. It does not work with the money that our owner is spending, because these guys, they're built to build a team with pennies, not with Benjamins, And then you bring that type of person into the Mets organization, right? Who has pennies to play with in Oakland. Now you give him the Benjamins. He spoiled. He spent all the money like a spoiled child. Granted or not, you got to have somebody to tell the owner no. He doesn't have that.
Let me tell you why that's even worse. He didn't come from Oakland. He came through the Yankees and the Angels. He came through two big. No, that makes your point even more, because he's only been with big market organizations, and he still doesn't look like he knows what he's doing when he's in the position of if he was through Oakland, I would hear what you're saying, and it might even make me I'd be like, well, okay, maybe that's not the man to hire, But wow, that's got to be a different experience. But like what you're saying, he came through the Yankees and the Angels. He's the one, I'm pretty sure, who signed Ohtani. He brought in, who's the third baseman, Rendon from Washington, when they signed him to a huge deal. Like he knows he's only worked in huge markets.
Okay.
But there's no vibe. But when you follow the Mets, like Cohen's money makes the Mets a big market team, right? But your GM, like I don't have any confidence. Next summer, Ohtani is a free agent. Do I have any confidence? If everything is equal, let's say he's talking to the Dodgers, the Yankees, and the Mets. Am I comfortable that Billy Eppler is going to pull Ohtani over the Dodgers and the Yankees? I'm not. I don't get that vibe from him. I don't get that vibe that like you're the guy. Like Manaea, yeah, I do get that vibe, but I don't get that from Billy Eppler. The players, and if you look also at the players on this team, you've watched the Mets as long as I have. There are years where they're stacked, and then there are years where, like this one, the names are nice. You like 93 was different in terms of that was a trash team, but you want to make some comparisons. Brett Saberhagen was a big time pitcher back in that time. He was a Cy Young winner. He had won a World Series as the ace of the Kansas City Royals. Not quite Verlander, but he also wasn't 40 years old like Verlander is.
Right.
Vince Coleman was a guy who had tortured the Mets for years. They could never throw Vince Coleman out when he was in St. Louis. They also added Eddie Murray. Eddie Murray was a switch hitting, slugging first base. He could still hit. He could still drive in runners. They had names, but when you watched them on the field, there was no sense that this is a dynamic team. And when you watch this team, right, for me this year, when I watch them, there's nothing dynamic. The starters are not blow you away. The bullpen is not blow you away. Other than Alonso and Alvarez, how many Mets? You remember this back in the day when the Mets had Darryl Strawberry, and you were in the kitchen, and Darryl Strawberry was up. You stopped what you were doing. You watched Darryl Strawberry hit. When they had Mike Piazza, you stopped what you're doing. You watched Mike Piazza hit. Other than Alonso and Alvarez, I don't think there's anyone on this team that I'm going to stop what I'm doing to watch them hit. I'm not stopping to watch Jeffrey Neal. I'm not stopping to watch Eduardo Escobar. I'm not stopping to watch Mark Canha. I like a lot of these guys. I'm not hating on the whole team. I'm just saying the weirdest thing to me about this team is there's nothing dynamic about them for all the money. They're just kind of a group of guys.
I added. Sorry, guys. If you see me looking around, I'm actually watching NBA Finals right now with Matt. So we're going to see me dart up and down up there too.
We need to have something good on the while we talk about the Mets. We got to have something good going on also.
Exactly. And I'm going to go back to Francisco Lindor. I'm on record on my podcast with you as witness. Jose Reyes is the far better and exciting player than Francisco Lindor. Prime for prime. Prime for prime.
Prime for prime is tough. Because this year ain't Lindor's prime. That's a tough one.
The dynamic that Jose brought to the team with the stolen bases is a dynamic.
Also, just the life that he had. That energy. It's weird to me that they don't have a guy like that. The 80s teams, they had Backman, they had Dykstra.
Little technical difficulty, guys, with Matt. Hopefully he'll come back soon. But definitely, we like I said, we'll finish off what he was saying. We had Dykstra, we had Backman, we had Ray Knight stirring the pot, being the tough guy of the team on third base. We had Doc and Darryl, the young superstars coming in to hold the fort. And the pitching itself, you had Doc, Ojeda, Darlin, Sid. For some reason, I forgot the fifth pitcher, but which is scary because I love the 86 team of all. This is the aspect of the New York Mets we have right now. No one in this team is actually bringing excitement. Even the years with David Wright, you would stop and watch David Wright stop and watch David Wright swing the bat. That 2016, 2017 with Delgado and Beltran on the team, you would stop and watch their at bats. No, you were thinking that something big was going to happen. Even Cliff Floyd on the team, his at bats was exciting. So everything that Matt was saying, and which I finished for him, this team, the New York Mets team, really does not have the play that stands out to them. Like, oh, he could turn the team around with his talent and energy. I'm gonna bring back Matt back to the podcast. Matt, you're back, right?
Thank you. I was so sad. I started to leave. I thought about just ending it all, but I came back.
Okay, got you. Yeah, I was mentioning to the watch to the viewers about the excitement that the team brought with Daryl Doc. You got Dykstra, you got Ray Knight as a tough guy on that 86 team.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go into the 97 team where you had Piazza and you have that Edgar Alfonso swinging the bat. You had a tough bullpen, extremely tough bullpen with Turk Wendell and Dennis Cooper leading the charge on that bullpen.
Yep. Franco Benitez.
And Benitez and Franco. And then you go into the 2006 season where you had Beltran and Delgado and Cliff Floyd. They're at bats.
David Wright.
Wright. The entire lineup was excited to watch on that 2016.
Yes. And they had the pitching. They had Pedro. They had Duque. They had Glavin. John Maine was like their fourth starter.
Mm-hmm.
John Maine would be right now like one of their better pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They don't. It's odd to have had the success that they had last year, and to spend the money that they have spent, and to look at the team and feel like, what am I excited about?
You want to know something, Matt? I would have been excited had he signed Michael Conforto.
There was a lot of talk in the offseason because he was hanging around available for so long. Mm-hmm. And I felt like, your offense isn't that good that you should be passing up someone that you know what he can do. Mm-hmm. He would look very nice right now in that lineup. It would look very nice.
And he's raking over there in San Francisco. Him, JD, and Wilmer.
Maybe they should send Daniel Vogelbach to San Francisco and things turn around for him.
That Pillsbury Doughboy does not do it for me. I'm sorry. He does not do it for me.
So, the thing that kills me about Vogelbach that makes it so much worse, if you remember, Jason Bay was like this. The Mets have brought in people that have struggled, and I think sometimes there's a cultural element to it. For example, like since I was a kid, as a whole, Met fans can be extremely racist towards Hispanic players. And the first example I saw of it was Juan Samuel back in the day, when they traded Lenny Dykstra and Roger McDowell for Juan Samuel. And Juan Samuel wasn't the player he had been in the past, but he wasn't the first player I had ever seen struggle or disappoint. He was the first one, though. I was young. I was 10. He was the first one I saw who got such an ugly reaction from the fans. And I couldn't make sense of it. He wasn't the worst player. Like, why was this Dominican player getting it so much worse than other people? If you remember, a few years after that, there was a player named Mel Rojas, who was a reliever that we got from Montreal. Well, now, a lot of relievers, by definition, their job is one thing or the other. They're successful or they fail. There's no middle ground.
No.
Mel Rojas is not the first reliever the Mets have ever brought in who has struggled. But I couldn't figure out. I was still kind of young. I'm like, why does Mel Rojas get this kind of reaction from the fans? And I remember it when they brought in Carlos Beltran the first. Like, I'm not going to give you the whole rundown, but I've seen enough to understand. Benitez got it. If a Latino player struggles on the Mets, there is a part of the fan base that is going to come for blood because it's a Latino player struggling Now you take Jason Bay, and the ultimate is Bobby Bonilla. Bobby Bonilla is literally is a hometown kid who says at his press conference, "Try to get the smile off my face," and it was like the city couldn't wait to do it. Now, Jason Bay is the worst signing this franchise has probably ever made. I don't even think Jason Bay got booed.
No, I don't remember that.
A lot of white dudes have come to the Mets and struggled. If you remember, there was a reliever named Braden Looper. Braden Looper, his first 2 months, and I'll tell you, I remember this man. His first 2 months, he didn't give up a run. And it was weird because, like, he didn't look like he was that dominant, but he had a great 2 months. Then he fell apart. A very friendly, apparently likable white dude. He wasn't great last year. He's been worse this year. He's finally started to hear some boos. Let's see what they do about it. Because you don't know this man. This isn't a man who has years of service with you. You owe this man nothing. There has to be someone on the planet who can swing a bat better for you than he played. The field. It's not like he's your bat. He doesn't do. I'm curious to.
If you let me interject, Matthew, let me
I will say I think they're pretty good about, like they'll make cutthroat moves if they think it makes the team better. When they cut Thomas Nito, I was very surprised because that situation would do the move that saves money, or they would pick the veteran. Like the Mets were just like, no, you're not hitting at all. You got to go. Why did we not get that with Vogelbach? Still, what is it going to take? How long does he? It's almost halfway through. He spoke today to the media, and they asked him at the press conference, like, what are you looking for? And he said, like, it's been 63 games of guys not playing at their level. So for the next 99 games, I want to see them at their level. Are you going to give Daniel Vogelbach another 99 games?
If I was the manager, no. I'm not, I don't want him on the team. I want him cut. I want him cut yesterday. And the thing is that they took a fly on Gary Sanchez. His first game, he was 1 for 3 with an RBI. He didn't last three games with the Mets. And the much that you say about the racism, they were saying, oh, he wasn't a good catcher. He can't catch, nothing like that. Scherzer didn't have a problem pitching to him. You know what I'm saying? So, and then he could have been used as the DH. They didn't have to cut him. They could have used him as a DH. You could have had a luxury that no team could ever have is three catchers on the team without even cutting a catcher. Because one could be a certified full-time DH.
Yep.
And now he's playing well in San Diego. Go figure.
He is. I think I will say this: if you're looking for reasons to be optimistic, it is now 14-6 in the 9th inning. So, for all of you who gave up at 14-2, keep hope alive, please. The Sanchez thing was weird because they brought him in so quick and then let him go so quick. I suppose the argument would be, you have Alvarez, and if anything, you might DH him. I thought they might DH Alvarez and let Nito and Contra, what's his last name? The guy they got in the offseason. What's his name?
Narvaez?
Yes. I thought maybe they would platoon the two of them at catcher because they're better catchers and let Alvarez just hit. But what you want to see, at least with Sanchez, was like, it caught my attention. Oh, the Mets are trying something. I want to see how it's going to work. Now it just feels like, all right, I'll just wait around and see if you can win some games. But like, it doesn't, and you know this too because you played baseball, and this is one of the things that's problematic as a fan. More than any other sport, I think. Like in basketball, you can lose and be running around just as much, if not more, than your opponent. Same thing in football. You might actually be trying. The problem in baseball when you struggle is that when you struggle, especially offensively, nothing happens. And your team looks lazy or your team looks dead. And not because you're not trying, but because if you're not getting hits, there's nowhere for anyone to run.
Right.
Just a baseball team that can't hit looks pathetic. I'm not saying that's fair, but it's the truth. It looks pathetic. What's weird about the Mets? It's still early. It is still technically a little early, but they look closer to pathetic than good. And not just in terms of performance, but in terms of energy. And
Yes.
I don't necessarily need them to make a move to try to turn it around this year. Maybe it doesn't work for them, but I do need to see. Okay, if you're lost at sea on a boat, you don't want the captain just sitting there on his hands. Like, you got to have an idea. You got to have an idea for something to try. And I don't think that they're desperate enough yet that they feel they have to do that. But like, I love Buck Showalter. I think he's brilliant. I need to see something from Buck Showalter. Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but like you were saying earlier about who we could move in the lineup. I don't know. Try something radical in the lineup. Try something in the lineup. Or I don't have the answer. If I did, I would make Buck Showalter money. I don't have the answer, but there's got to be something you can do besides maybe today it turns around.
I think I like your optimism, but I think it's over. They could probably sneak it to the wild card.
It might be
and give us a tease, but this is not. This team is still hung over from last year at the way they got punked out of the playoffs by the San Diego. Lindor is not the leader that you were looking for this team. But I'm not taking away from his talent. But something about him is off with me. I don't know why. But I'm not gonna take away from his talent. The man is talented. Due to the inflation of the Major League Baseball contracts, he deserves that contract. Due to the inflation. But I read an article today, knowing that we were going to do the podcast about the Mets, and I Bleav Buck Showalter kind of like let it slip out and told that it was the analytics guys in the Mets department is the one that's putting out the lineup. Matt, I don't know if you've seen the previous podcasts where I spoke about that stuff. I feel that analytics is the worst thing to happen to baseball. What happened to gut, strategy, and instincts? What happened to that? Why we gotta be? It's like AI for baseball. No, it doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that. Just because the guy threw 100 pitches doesn't mean he's done for the game. There's some guys depending on the type of innings they've been pitching, they could go 120 easy. It all depends on the stress of the innings that they pitch.
Yep.
The hit and run the hit and run no longer exists. Stolen bases no longer exist. We are all about launch angles and home runs.
Yeah, and they keep tweaking it, which I think they keep messing it up. Like, now you got the bases are larger and the pitcher can only throw over 2 times. You don't need to keep jerking around with the game works. The game worked for more than 100 years the way it was designed to be played. The problem is you can't put the genie back in the bottle. And because the league and the owners and the players all decided to turn a blind eye to PEDs and the numbers that they warped and the money that came with it, now they can't get back to how it used to be. So they keep changing everything. Everything is like, for example, when we were kids, the All-Star game was kind of a big deal. Like, you see Dwight Gooden pitching to Don Mattingly, you didn't see that during the year, so it was exciting. Now, if you're Major League Baseball, your business has expanded enough with interleague play and with media TV deals that, like, now we've seen everybody. I see if I want to see Ohtani, he'll be on TV this week. I could watch him. So, but you got something for that. You got all this money now, but you have to accept that you've lost something, which is like the All-Star game is not going to be special anymore because fine. Instead of accepting that and being happy with enough, now they got to ruin it. Okay, now we're going to make the All-Star game count for home field in the World Series. That's not going to make you watch. Who cares? But instead of just seeing like, look, you can't have everything. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you gain something, you're gonna lose something.
Mm-hmm.
But baseball never accepts that, and that's how now you end up with larger bases and pitch
Mm-hmm.
clocks instead of, you know what, you make $9 billion a year. Chop one commercial from every half inning, and that's
Mm-hmm.
18 minutes of a shorter game. But okay,
Yeah.
you can't do that. You can't do that because you got to try to have everything. So it's the same thing now. You're saying hit and run is gone. I thought, I'm a hypocrite. I'll admit it. I said once watching the 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 intrigue of watching pitchers hit, like it's weird. Um, you had a pitch clock. Now the bases are a different size. Now you
Mm-hmm.
can't have a shift, which I don't even like the shift, but like, what is going on with your game that you have to make these many rule changes in like the last 5 years? And people still
That
aren't happy.
you know what it is too, Matt. I think it's the appeal to bring back the African American player back to baseball. This is
I agree with
what
that. And the
this is
fans
what,
too.
and the fans too. Black African American people believe that this game is too slow. Yes, that's true. They're more gravitated to basketball and football. Yes, that's true. But let's look at the flip side of the reason why that's happening. Because because the scouts are not going to a minority school like Uniondale to look at black players, and this is not going to go there. Period. And then they're not going to go to Westbury. They're not going to go to Hempstead. They're not going to go anywhere like that to look at minority players, African American players. They're not doing it. That's the
Oh,
real reason why there's not enough African
yep.
black players in baseball now. That's the reason why. Has nothing to do about speed up the game. The game is too slow. They're not
Mhm,
getting the exposure. They're not being looked at.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Plain and simple.
No, and it's the same as everything before. It's because, you know, they chase the dollar, they chase every last dollar, and every
Mm-hmm.
last dollar says go to the Dominican because there's
Mm-hmm.
no unions there. You can pay them much less, and if it
Mm-hmm.
falls apart or blows up in their face, no one's going to care because they're not American kids. You don't need to worry about it. It won't be in the news. The number of Dominican kids, Puerto Rican kids, Venezuelan kids, um, it's a great unspoken story in baseball, like how they just, and you see it like from what you're saying. The only group that's not hurting is the white player. The black player is
Mm-hmm.
hurting. Latino player is hurting. But yeah, like you're saying, I mean, they have a problem. You know, they look like they got a problem, and they're not doing anything about it. Baseball didn't have everything, and then made it worse.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're trying to put it, and they still can't figure out what they're doing. It's hard to watch sometimes. It struck me, and there's like 7 seconds left on the pitch clock. I'm like, what am I doing here? What?
Sometimes you gotta leave well enough alone. Let's go back to
Mm-hmm.
let's go back having a National League with no DH. Let's go back. Let's go back to
Saying
non-pitch class. Let's go back to throwing the ball to first base as many times as you want. It doesn't matter anymore. You're messing up the game.
I mean, it's not
Baseball
old,
is
but like
different.
let your pitcher throw 8 innings. Let him do it.
God forbid. God forbid that's going to happen.
You remember watching the joy of watching a playoff game and watching two aces go against each other into the 8th or 9th inning, and you're just waiting
Mm-hmm.
to see like who's going to blink first.
Yeah.
And now, literally a couple years ago, Tampa in the Game 7 of the World Series pulls a pitcher who has like a shutout because the
Mm-hmm.
analytics tell them now's the time he's got to go, and then they lose the game.
We lost the series.
Lost the World Series. When your ace, who had like a shutout in the 7th inning of Game 7, you pulled him. So I don't know how to make. I can't speak to that world. I can't make sense of that world. Um, I love the game because we played it as kids. I love the game because I watched the Mets a very long time. Um, but like you're saying, everything is now launch angles and spin rates. And it's not just. I'll say this: like the players get paid to succeed. and they're chasing crazy money to do so. I can't hate on the player for like doing what he has to do to make his living. Like, that's fine. But it's the media, like the way the game is covered and the willingness to just jump into like, okay, cool. Like when I watch a game, the moment Alonso hits a home run, they're telling me the degree of launch and how fast he hit the ball. I'm not stupid. If the pitcher threw it 95 and Alonso crushed it, I know it's fast. Like, I know it got out there in a hurry. I never saw Darryl Strawberry hit a home run and thought, huh, did he get that one? Like, I know that he got it.
Did
I
he
don't
get
have
the
to do
launch
any
angle?
math.
Did he get the launch
Remember when
angle?
Strawberry hit the roof in Montreal? I didn't need the
Yes.
launch angle. It's up there.
Shout out to Montreal and the Olympic
Shout out to Olympic
Stadium.
Stadium.
You know, when I went to go visit my family up there in Montreal, in the Laval section of Montreal, you know, we took always my father's always drive down to Olympic Stadium to see the stadium
Oh,
from the outside.
nice. Nice.
It's a beautiful stadium, and it's just sad that Montreal does not have a baseball team,
Yep.
and
It's always bothered me very much.
it's just sad.
Yep.
And they haven't demolished the building from what I've known. I haven't been to Canada since 2015, but I Bleav the stadium is still up. It hasn't been cut, brought down, anything like that. So it's still up.
They deserve a team. They deserve to get its team back.
But my thing is with the whole playoff system right now, with what I Bleav is three wild card teams.
Yeah,
3 or 4. I think
it's three division winners and 3 wild cards.
I Bleav it's time, since we officially have 6 teams. How would you feel if both the National League and American League go back to 2 divisions, West and East, in each side of the leagues?
I would go for that because that's what I grew up with. I'm opposite from where the league goes. I would like there to be less playoff teams.
Me too.
Because I feel it makes it more special. Not only, and I think what gets lost a lot, and I think this hurts baseball. I don't think they trust the fans to be smart enough. You know, when you were a kid, like there was a division winner, and that was it. There were 7 teams in a division, and 6 of them didn't make it. But because of that, you had other reasons to watch and support your team. There was a year where R.A. Dickey won 20 games in his last start as a knuckleballer. And Met fans were all over it if R.A. Dickey could do it. There was a year Jose Reyes won the batting title on the last day of the season. There was a day, if you remember back in the day, there was a great outfielder briefly on the Mets named Lance Johnson, a left-handed hitter, outfielder. He got 200 hits, I Bleav, on the last day of the season. There were reasons, like even if your team wasn't going to win, because you followed them and you cared about them, there was something to keep you going. Maybe they can get to 500. If you trust, you know, it's like a business. If your business is good and you trust the consumer can recognize quality, they will come back. We need 4 playoffs. Now we need. How many can you add before the regular season doesn't mean anything?
They need to go back to 4. Let's keep it to 4.
Yeah, and I would, to be honest with me, like you want to shorten the season, you want to go back to 154 games, I don't mind that either. But definitely there's too many playoff teams, because even right now, we're talking about the Mets. You could absolutely say, you know what? Last year, the Mets won basically every single day for 6 months, and they had nothing to show for it in a year where the Braves and the Phillies both stumbled around for 3 or 4 months. So is it worth getting that freaked out as a Met fan right now that you're on the same track that the Braves and Phillies were a year ago, knowing that your owner will make additions if they're out there to make the team better, knowing that we don't like Verlander and Scherzer missing time, but they're not wearing their arms out going through 35 starts. They may have more bullets now. So, like, even there, I don't like that my team can struggle for nearly half the year, and I'm still not worried at all about the playoffs because everybody gets in. I'm
But
like you, man. Give me 4 teams. I don't need a pitch clock.
hmm
Just
and
let them play ball.
I think that pitch clock affects the older pitchers too.
Oh, Scherzer can't shut up about it. Yeah, absolutely.
hmm
Yeah, I'm sure you're right.
Affects the older pitchers. They have a routine now. They feel like they're being rushed.
And what team has one of the old? Look at the Mets pitching staff. Verlander's over 40. Scherzer's 40. Senga's in his first season in the major leagues. The Mets are probably struggling more with that adaptation than almost any other team. Because who else has a pitching staff that old or inexperienced in the major leagues? Not many.
No.
Nobody. So maybe that's a reason to hope again things turn around. Um, we'll see.
Let me ask you a question before we shift. Because we got a little bit of time left. I want to talk about a little bit about the NBA Finals in a second. Do you believe Showalter should be on the hot seat, or is he? Well, it's two questions. Should he be on the hot seat, or do you believe that if Cohen's going to make a move, he's going to go for the manager first?
I don't think that Showalter should be on the hot seat. I don't think he is. I think
Mm-hmm.
Showalter is the most of everyone in the organization. Showalter right now probably gives Cohen the most credibility as an owner. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I just read an article tonight. Billy Eppler, all of his time working for Cashman and then the Angels. Brian Cashman has never fired a coach or a manager during the season. And in all his years, he's never done that.
Mm-hmm.
And Billy Eppler apparently took that to heart and was like, I don't want to do that either, and hasn't done it. I appreciate that. I think that's a better management model. Whatever happens with Showalter, especially, and I think it matters for an owner like Cohen. Cohen is an unproven owner that the rest of the league is like set up to try to like, they don't like this guy. So
Mm-hmm.
they're going to make his job harder for everything that he does. If he starts firing people during the season, like he's not, no team is going to let him talk to their guy to replace Showalter. Um, and I honestly, I mean, I really do feel that there's not that many managers to me better than Showalter. I think Showalter is one of the only managers. That thing about the analytics and the lineup is very disappointing. But other than that, he's literally one of the only managers who still actually manages a game. He's not just pushing buttons for the GM.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think he's fine. I think Cohen keeps him because I don't think right now, if you can Showalter, then it's Steve Cohen and Billy Eppler running the Mets, and that's not going to give anyone any that doesn't look good. I think he could fire Eppler first and keep Showalter, and people would. I think Showalter carries more respect around the game than Billy Eppler or Steve Cohen, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that's why. I think that's why for now you definitely hold on to him.
I'm in total agreement. So there's nowhere else you could go as far as a manager if you fire Showalter. You're gonna bring
Yeah.
back Bobby V.
No, that's the same thing I feel with the Knicks. If people want to get rid of Tom Thibodeau, that's fine. You're not signing Pat Riley. You're
Yeah.
not signing, Steve Kerr's not like, who are you so excited about?
The only Matt, we talked about this before. The only guy that the fans will be excited about will be Mark Jackson.
Yeah, but I'll tell you right now, 100% of the fans would be excited for two very different reasons. 50% of the fans would love it, and 50% of the fans be jumping off the bridge. You'd be inspirational, yeah, in a lot of different ways.
But
Oh my god.
um, I'm looking at this team right now. You got 3/4 outfielders starting. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, 3/4
Yeah.
outfielders starting. Marte's not hitting the way he's supposed to hit. You need a big time bat in left field. You need that big bat. If you anything to get this team jump started and have some depth in the lineup, you need a big slugging outfielder. Even if you got to move Marte to left field or what have you, you need that slugger. And
If Alvarez this year finishes with like 25 home runs, rookie of the year, to you, is that enough production at catcher to offset left field? Or you feel like, period, they need a left fielder who can slug, or an outfielder who can slug?
they need outfielder who can slug.
Yeah.
You can't keep running Fam out there. You can't keep running Canna out there
Mm.
to play every day. And there's this experiment with Ronnie Mauricio, our big time shortstop in the minor leagues, who's raking down there in AAA. Now they want to try him out in left field. This now
That's
you
the
got a
Mets. That's the
situation.
Mets fan.
That's a situation. That's a situation of Jose Reyes again. Did they try to put Reyes in center field or left field when he had a second stint with the
Center
Mets?
field. Center field.
Something like that.
The Mets. You could make a whole outfield of non-outfielders the Mets have put there. They put Todd Hundley in left field. They put Jose Reyes in center field.
Mm-hmm.
There was a game. It was smart. There was a game back in '86 when they played Jesse Orosco and Roger McDowell. They platooned them. Actually, you can't do it now. But Davey had one in right field because he wanted to match up with the Cardinals, the righties and lefties. So he brought in Orosco and McDowell. He put McDowell in right field. He put Orosco to pitch. When the righty came up, he flipped them, stuck McDowell in right field, and it worked. You're not allowed to do it anymore. They changed the rules. But to your point, the Mets have a very sad history of trying to fit players all over the place where they don't belong.
But what can you do? What can you do? I think.
What can you do, man?
I think trading away JD Davis was a bad move. Not signing Conforto was a bad move. What else can I say that could make me be like?
Do you think right now, are you done right now that they have no chance to make based on what you've seen?
They're getting beat up by the Pirates, who they're going to be in a race for that wild card spot. They're getting beat up right now, 14-6. Final score.
It was yeah. I think it was 14-6.
14-6 final score. As I'm sifting through the channels, I'm blatantly about to change the channel right now to see the score. As I'm watching Jokic hit a 3-pointer. But
that's right. 14-7. A little more respect on that. 14-7.
Whoop-de damn do. I mean, if Billy Eppler, if Steve Cohen wants to sign a general manager, I'm here. You can sign me anytime you want. I'm ready. Why not?
For business.
I'm ready. Give me an opportunity and put people
so let me
around
ask you,
me.
all right, let's say Steve Cohen is listening. And Steve Cohen says, Dom, what's the first position or the first point that I need to address? What would you say?
Minor league director. I like depth.
That's fair. But okay, let me ask you this. Whatever you do to improve the minor leagues is not going to help the team this season.
I'm not concerned about this season. This season's lost. I'm concerned about the future.
You say it's done. You're saying this season, no chance.
It's done because the payroll's out of control. I wouldn't let the payroll go to $400 million. It's just not equitable to pay 40-year-old pitchers. Granted, they're going to be Hall of Famers. It's not equitable to pay 40-year-old pitchers $86 million. It's not equitable. It's not smart.
What would you address first with the Mets? The starting rotation?
The problem is
the bullpen, or which one would you address first?
I'm a big proponent of starting pitching because the starting pitching will set the bullpen for success or failure. And the reason why I say that is because if your pitchers can only go to 5 innings, you're going to burn out that bullpen. It may look good in the beginning of the season. You get all these wins. When you get to later in the season and get to the playoffs, you're going to have dead arm periods with the bullpen.
Arms are shot, yep.
The dead arms are shot. I may do some wild stuff as general manager of the New York Mets. I may explore trading Francisco Lindor.
You can want to. The only problem you're going to run into there is, first of all, his value is probably is lower right now than you'd want it to be, and there's a very limited number of teams that can trade for a $300 million shortstop who don't already have one.
I would trade him to Anaheim and take back Mike Trout.
I would do that too. I'd be very happy to do that. Anaheim's not going to have no interest.
Mike Trout is always an older player. You
Is
gotta
what?
take. You gotta take. He's an older player. You gotta take the L with his age, just to get that contract off your hands. And then, you got to sweeten the pot too. Of course, I got to sweeten up the pot, but I would make the attempt, but it has to sound good. I'm big on equity. You know what I'm saying? Trade got to be equitable. Signings got to be equitable. Everything with me, the main objective is equity. Main objective. You know, so Beatty as a third baseman, he puts up decent numbers. But if there's an opportunity to get a hot shot third baseman that can change the franchise around, I'm going to entertain it. Same thing that happened with Piazza and Hundley. Hundley was coming off elbow injury.
Mm-hmm.
You got to make it. You got to make an executive decision.
Mm-hmm.
Preston Wilson was a good player for Florida.
Yes, he was.
But you pissed off his daddy by trading him away, who was your employee. I get it. You don't want to do it, but you got the Hall of Fame catcher.
Right, Piazza. Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, as much of a fan I was of Todd Hundley, you can never pass that up. The only mistake was, in my opinion, with the situation of Piazza, they should have went gun ho for Delgado in 2005. To pair him up with Mike Piazza, with that lineup with Beltran, it probably would have been easier for Beltran. I think Beltran calmed down once Delgado came to the team.
Oh, I'm sure it helped.
And the fact that you had Pedro, definitely, I Bleav it helped a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Starting pitching is going to be more difficult to figure out for 2 years. The size of the older pitchers it does set you back. As much as we want to sign DeGrom, as much, I'm going to eat crow on this one, Matt. I did not want Wheeler at 118 for 4 years, and Zach Wheeler made me eat. I'm eating crow because of that. Because I wish we had Zach Wheeler. I definitely. I'll take the L on that one. I wish we had Zach Wheeler on this team.
Let me give you the silver lining now, and then if you want to talk some basketball, let's do that because I'm gonna have to run in a couple. But we talked about this a little bit beforehand. As disappointing as this season has been, in the Met multiverse, there is a dimension very close to our own where they re-signed DeGrom and they traded for Carlos Correa. They signed DeGrom and Correa. And in that dimension, DeGrom is now having Tommy John surgery. Correa has been one of the worst contracts in baseball. It's been disappointing, but just imagine it would not have been a big jump for the Mets to sign DeGrom and for Correa to work out. And just imagine where you'd be today with this team if Beatty's in the minors, Correa's stinking it up at third, Verlander's not here, DeGrom's on the DL. That's a dimension where I'm like, this team is done. They have no chance at all.
Okay, Matt. Before I jump into basketball, let me give you my dimension as Dom, the GM of the New York Mets.
Go ahead.
Dom, the GM of the New York Mets. I'm gonna go back 5 years. Pete Alonso would be playing third base, not first base, and Dom Smith would be playing first base.
Dom Smith, that sweet glove. I always liked Dom Smith, and I've always wondered, Alonso is not a bad first baseman. Let me say that. He's not bad. And, if it makes him happy, and a happy Alonso is a good Alonso. But it's never made sense to me that he's going to – I don't see that being a guy who's going to play 10 years at first base. It doesn't seem like it,
Eventually, he's going to be the full-time DH. Eventually, that's going to happen with Pete Alonso.
You would think so.
Another thing too, I'm going to say something blasphemous and Dom, the GM of the New York Mets universe. I would not have traded for Francisco Lindor
You are very down on Francisco Lindor.
because of the
Because you
contract.
don't like what they gave up for him?
Hmm?
Because you don't do you like Jimenez and Rosario so much that you would have kept them, or you just don't think Lindor was worth the price?
As far as equity, and you see what Jimenez is doing in Cleveland.
I gotta check his numbers this year. I feel like he's been off this year, but I might be wrong about that. One of them has been Jimenez this year is hitting 245. He's got 3 home runs, 16 RBIs. He's not having like a hell of a year. Rosario is hitting. Where'd it go? Here we go. Ahmed Rosario is hitting 236. So I'll say this: as much as Lindor has struggled, Jimenez and Rosario combined have 4 home runs, are hitting about 240. I can't say I hear you, and I understand. Especially, it's a bit weird with Lindor because for all of his talent, and
It's the energy factor with him.
yeah.
It's the energy factor with him.
See, I suspect
I'm turned off.
I think he suffers more than most Mets by the fact that they're losing, because to me, when the Mets are winning, like that guy, to me, has a natural, like he's one of the few Mets that has an energy to him. And when the Mets are good, we all see that energy, like Lindor's popping. When they're bad, and he's been part of the reason that they're struggling, but when they're struggling, and he looks like not energetic, it's a worse look on him. Like energetic players who look like they've been kind of unplugged, it's a bad look. And I feel like Lindor looks like that right now. But I'm not sure that's all his fault. If nobody, his home runs and his RBIs and his defense are basically where they should be. His average is terrible. You'd like to see that change. Like Eppler said today, you got 98 games left to perform closer to what the back of their baseball card says that they do. I guess that's what I'm hoping for at this point.
One last thing before we go off the basketball. You're Steve Cohen. You fight Eppler.
Not right now.
Not right now. No. It's going to be the offseason.
Okay.
If you're not going to bring back Mania to have some front office role, the guy who probably fits Steve Cohen the best is the guy who I hate the most as a GM of the New York Mets would be Steve Phillips.
Steve Phillips. Oh my God. I did not see that coming. Why?
He could tell Steve Cohen no. I think there's a fear factor with Eppler. You're gonna need a strong general manager who's going to tell strong personality general manager, which Steve Phillips is. I've met him. He got a strong personality, a dick personality. And when you got an owner like this, you got to be a dick to get his attention. I'm sorry to say it. You got to be a dick.
No, I got you.
And I never said Steve Phillips was bad as a general manager. I think the biggest mistake is not signing A-Rod to go with Piazza after the World Series. That was his biggest mistake.
I'm going to say, well, as long as we're talking multiverses again, if A-Rod had come, A-Rod was that was off season of 2000. According to Alex Rodriguez, who I don't consider a reliable source, but since he's talking about his own life, like I'll listen to him. According to A-Rod, he took PEDs in Texas in part because he was struggling with the pressure of living up to that contract that he had signed, the 10-year, $252 million contract in Texas. And I understand that. Like, that is a lot of pressure. But he struggled with that in Texas,
Mhm.
that deal. But to lead the New York Mets to a World Series, that guy would have been smoking crack before every game with the pressure that he was feeling. Like,
But
if he couldn't handle it in Texas, he's not going to handle it in Queens, is he?
but in Texas, did he have a Mike Piazza or Edgar Alfonso to take the pressure off of him?
He did not, but he did have. You're right about that. He certainly did not have. He did not have Mike Piazza, certainly. But I'm glad you asked that, because I was just going to look up that first team he went to. That team he joined in Texas had Pudge Rodriguez, Rafael Palmeiro, Michael Young, who was not a bad hitting second baseman, Gabe Kapler, who had 17 home runs that year, Ruben Sierra, Rusty Greer, Andre Galarraga, Ken Caminiti. Like, that wasn't a joke. That was
No, that was a good team.
and he still. But I'm saying, even with all that, understandably, he felt like pressure's on me. I've got to be even better than I can be. I have never thought psychologically that dude could have coped with being a Met. And then for the PED scandal to drop with him as a Met, with the Wilpon ownership and their whole, that would have been a disaster. Like if you could separate everything else and add Alex Rodriguez's talent to Mike Piazza, you're right. Like, I'm right there with you. The reality is that would have been a mess, I think.
Not just for Piazza's talent. You had Edgar Alfonso. You still had Robert Ventura.
Well, they would have gotten rid of it. Oh no, they probably wouldn't. You're right. They would have had. But then, okay, then that means 2 years later, Jose Reyes is getting traded.
Jose plays second base.
Oh, I forgot it's the Mets. They're going to move everybody out of position.
He's going to play second base. And then you let go.
He could have played second.
You let go of Alfonso. Then you let go of Alfonso going to San Francisco and that fiasco. Then you can say move A-Rod to third base and move Jose Reyes to second to shortstop. The key is you would have never had Kaz Matsui.
This whole podcast is making me very angry at the San Francisco Giants for picking up on all of our ex-Mets. From Fonzie to Conforto, it never stops.
Never stops. And Wilmer, our good old friend Wilmer. We can't forget Wilmer.
Never forget Wilmer.
Who's more clutch than the post bear Doughboy Vogelbach. So
I can't talk about Daniel Vogelbach anymore. I'm not going to get to bed tonight if I talk anymore about Daniel Vogelbach.
But let's get to basketball. Let's get to the basketball, man. As we see in the third quarter with 2 minutes and 7 seconds left in the third quarter, Denver's up 76-68 against the Miami Heat. I think the Miami Heat's run of Cinderella story is going to come to an end. They didn't win the first game of the series, and Jokic, and the key to the series with the Denver Nuggets, not Jokic, is Jamal Murray, a guy the Knicks could have drafted.
Yeah, you always tie it back to something painful. You remember why the Knicks were not able to draft him, correct?
I forgot.
Because they had traded the draft pick that goes with Jamal Murray in the Carmelo Anthony trade.
Yeah.
So,
and all Carmelo had to do was wait. All that Carmelo had to do was wait in the offseason. He would have walked into that team the way it was.
Mm-hmm. But
before you mentioned that,
anyway, for a while
before you mentioned that, he would have replaced Landry Fields as starting two guard. Just saying.
He would have replaced Landry Fields very nicely.
Just saying. But we digress. As I
the
see
thing that stands out, go ahead.
Something's going on in the stands. Ladies being taken off the court, probably a medical issue or somewhat. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, she's being taken off the court. Stoppage of play. She's taken off the court. She's going on a stretcher. Probably a medical episode.
No. She's a ringer. Riley hired her. That's a ringer. He's trying to break Denver's momentum.
Just like OG did with the Knicks in 1994.
Right? You get PJ Brown to throw that woman in the crowd. You've played ball. I think at every level. You play even a pickup game. If the biggest, strongest person on the floor is also the best shooter and the best passer and the smartest person, like that team is going to win pretty much. And that's what's remarkable to me about Jokic, is just with all the skill that he has, he's like LeBron. With all the skill that he has, his brain is his best asset. And I've watched Miami very closely, not just against the Knicks, but the Milwaukee series and the Boston series. And they are amazing at how they can adapt to like just about anything. I don't know if you can adapt to this man.
No.
You know, when you are the biggest, the strongest, the smartest, and the most skilled, what are you going to do?
And he's 7 foot something, handles like a point guard.
Yep.
Who cares? Who cares? He jumps 2 inches. This guy's unstoppable.
It's like he doesn't need to jump. If you remember the movie Goodfellas, really early in the movie, Ray Liotta's character is talking about Paulie, who's like the head of the mob, and all these guys are hanging out in front of a shop, kind of messing around, being loud. And Paulie takes like 2 steps outside. Everything goes quiet, and then very slowly, Paulie turns and goes back in. And Ray Liotta's character says, basically, he says like, if Paulie didn't move fast, it's because Paulie never had to be in a rush. And when you watch Jokic, like you can't rush this man.
No,
you can't. And so much of defense is like, you see it happen to Julius Randle every playoff. They rush him, and he struggles. Like it's a hard thing to do. You can't rush this man. You can't move him. You know, remember this man put Markieff Morris basically in traction for 2 months with a shove to the back. Like he's that strong. He's that smart. He easily could have won his 3rd MVP in a row this year. Easily. Probably only didn't win it because people were sick of him winning.
But he's proven that he does deserve that 3rd MVP though. He's proven it in this series.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's more than likely if they do win the series. You know, I'm not counting Miami out, but if they do win the series, he's going to win the NBA Finals MVP. Even though you could give that. I'm not saying you could give it to Jamal Murray, but Jamal Murray's health enabled this team to reach the final level.
Yeah, I agree. I love watching the two of them play together. Jamal Murray in the bubble really is when he kind of blew up and went from like, oh, this is a nice kind of scoring guard to this is a different kind of man. Like, and you see just watching the two of them play, seeing, you know, when you got a guy like Michael Porter Jr. just hanging out in the corner, as lethal of a shooter as he is, and and you got guys like Bruce Brown, who I loved when he was on Brooklyn. Great kind of jack of all trades player. They're a wonderful team, and they're interesting to talk about after our Mets discussion. I know it's a different sport, but one of the things that's really interesting about both teams, but I think particularly Denver, is a lot of teams would have blown it up a year, 2, 3 years ago. Well, they would have made some change because they would have said, we haven't won yet, and like we're good, so we got to make a change. They never did. Those guys have been together forever, and you see, especially with Jokic, like how much Golden State was like that with Steph, where like there's a point where teams would say like you can't practice for what they do because it's spontaneous, like, and it's much harder to play an opponent that you can't even rehearse for. You can't rehearse for a lot of what Denver does because these guys have been together. Jokic and Murray have been together almost 10 years. Porter has been there. Porter's kind of young. He's already been there like 5 years. So Aaron Gordon's been there a while. So they know each other. They have this. When you say with the Mets, this is one reason why I don't think the Knicks need to make a huge move unless it will obviously make them better. Like, fine, then you do it. But otherwise, like, let your guys. Everything the Knicks did together, it was their first year with Brunson. Imagine next year what Brunson and Barrett can do. Or Brunson and Quickly or whoever, like anybody, just give them a little time, you know.
I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't trade. I'm gonna go on record. Say I wouldn't even do nothing with the team. If you can't trade Randall and stand pat, I'm comfortable with it. But now, what it is now, you got to find minutes for Obi Toppin with Randall on the squad. You gotta go with the double power forward lineup. You may have to put Toppin if it continues to get better with a shot making and mid-range game. You may have to put Toppin and do a big lineup and put him at the 3. and put Barrett at the 2. You could do that too, but it's up to Obi Toppin to expand his game too with the perimeter with the mid range game. What's lost to the
But here's the
NBA is
problem,
everybody
man.
loves. Mhm.
Even if Obi the problem is even if Obi expands his game, if Tom Thibodeau is still the coach, it doesn't matter. Thibodeau is never going to play. He doesn't like to play lineups that don't have a shot blocker. He hates it. He absolutely hates it. Even when the numbers have been good with Randall and Toppin in limited minutes. Like, if Tibbs is there, Toppin is not playing. Or rather, I should say, if Tibbs is there and Randall is there, Toppin is never going to play, sadly. I'm not totally broken up about it because the guy playing in front of him is better.
Mm-hmm.
He's been better. He's not
talent wise better, but mentally.
That's not just talent. I mean, let's be real.
Mm-hmm.
If I told you right now to bet you want to bet on Obi Toppin making 2 All-Star games the rest of his career or not, 2 or more All-Star games, you taking that bet right now?
You trade away to another team, he'll make more than 2 All-Star games.
You think he'll be
put him in the right system?
He'll be two-time All-NBA?
I don't know.
Because Randall's done that 2 of the last 3 years.
Remember, they did compare him. They did compare him, Obi, to Omari Stoudemire,
which I think was very nice to Obi Toppin.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw when Stat came in the league.
Mm-hmm.
That was different. I love Obi. This is not anti-Obi at all.
Mm-hmm.
Stoudemire was a Hall of Fame player.
Yeah. The knees wasn't Hall of Fame knees.
No, they weren't. But and here's the other thing that works. You're not wrong about it. They should put his kneecaps like in the Hall of Fame. But the other thing is, remember, Stat came basically right out of high school. Obi is an old rookie. Obi's already 26. So that's going to work against all of the value and all of the, like, we talk about Obi like he's 23 because he's only been around a little while. But Obi Toppin is almost as old as Julius Randle. It's that same weird shit with Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is like 31. It doesn't seem like that at all. It's because he came up late. So I think that works against Toppin. I don't think that's fair, by the way. And I think when you look deeper into Toppin's career, high school, college, every level he's been at, he basically redshirted for a year, watched, absorbed a lot of stuff, and then when it was time to play, he was ready to go. That tells you, like, this person has intelligence, this person has commitment, this person has drive. Like, I really do hope he gets a chance to go somewhere where he plays 30 minutes a game. And I think you're right. Like, he will put up all-star numbers if you give him 30 minutes a game. Definitely.
Put him in the right system with a guy who could push the ball up court. That's the same thing about it. If he had played with the Lob City Clippers. Think about that.
Yeah. Someone's going to sign him. Someone's going to want him. We'll see.
So definitely, man, once again, it's a pleasure having you on the show. Next show I hope to have you would be on the 5th year anniversary of the True Players podcast. I hope you join us on the show. That's going to be a very special show. It's going to be, if we do it live, it's going to be 2 to 3 hours. I know you got other podcasts to do as well as your own podcast to do. We'd love to have you on that 5th year anniversary with myself, and of course with Joey G, our brother. On the show.
Hit me up with my man Joey G. Hit me up for sure. I would love to do that.
So definitely 5th year anniversary. Of course, we have Mars from Down the Den podcast, a big Laker fan. Live Neutral with WDIYP podcast joining us on the podcast as well. Hopefully, Prophecy will join us along with Black Rose will join us on the podcast. It's going to be a very big podcast because it is year 5. It is year 5.
Congratulations to you on 5 years, man. That's legit.
Thank you.
It's not an industry where a lot of people make it to 5 years, so much respect.
First, I was doing it for the love of podcasting, just to put my own opinion out there with my intensity, with my thoughts. As much as people may think my thoughts are out of the world and stuff, but I like to think with logic. I base my movements on logic, not sometimes emotion, but I base it on logic. Because what's lost in this world, the reason why we're going down as a world is the subject of logic is being removed from our mindset, and we need to bring that back. And I'm here to maintain a logic and common sense in the world.
The definite lack of common sense going on.
Absolutely, too many people, too many humans walking and talking like robots. And it's time to go back to having free will, and be open to disagree without trying to kill each other and punch each other in the face. And we can still be friends after we disagree. Um, that's my mindset about True Players Podcast. You know, I've been trying to get you on the podcast for a long time, and I finally got you on, and now you do it like almost once a month with me on the podcast. So
I enjoy it every time, man. Every time, brother. I have a good time here.
Definitely. But like I said, True Players Podcast. We're gonna have an episode coming up on Tuesday. Me and Joey G. We recapped Power season 3. That's just part 1. Part 1. There's going to be a part 2 to that podcast.
Oh
part
my God!
1 come out Tuesday, 8 p.m.
People have been warned. You've been warned, people.
Part 1. Part 1. Hey, we may surprise you with a part 2 live right after. So watch out now. Watch out. A lot of surprises may happen.
Very cool, man. I'm looking forward to that. I know the listeners are too.
Definitely. So definitely, man, let the people know where you can listen to your podcast and check out your blogs and Knicks Bleav Pod.
Well, I've been making some changes, and I'll clear everything up now for people. I'm still writing at the Strickland about the Knicks, the Strick.land. No longer posting and toasting. I've called it an end after 10 years. And I'm still doing the Jacobin Sports Show. We had a podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Jacobin Sports Show, JACOBIN. It's also we have a Patreon you can check out, patreon.com/Jacobin Sports Show. I am just about done doing the Bleav Knicks podcast. And actually, I'll be dropping this news here on the True Players because I haven't even told this on our own podcast yet. But we're going to be moving to a different, probably listener-subscribed model. So we're probably going to do one more episode of Bleav, BLEAV, with my co-host Stacey Patton. But we will be moving this off-season to a new platform. And you can find us on Twitter at Bleav Knicks, or just go online, Bleav Knicks. But if you follow me on Twitter at Miranda613, or no, sorry, I changed it, at Matthew E. Miranda, you can get updates there. But just keep an eye out for that. I'm sure I'll talk about it more on the show before it happens. But if you look up Dick's Matthew Miranda, you'll find me somewhere.
Absolutely. It's definitely he gives you great insight on everything that he does. You know, I know this man since kindergarten. So it's been a very long time, very long time.
Long time. That was pre-Patrick Ewing days. That was a long time ago.
Pre-Patrick Ewing days. Oh my God! I think we were like a year off or 2 years off, right? From his debut. Definitely. And like I said, time. So, like I said, everyone, you can definitely watch the True Players podcast on YouTube and Patreon, and also on Twitter, at True Players. Dom, I believe, or True Players podcast. Just search for True Players, TRUPLAYAZ on Twitter, and that should come up. Also, you can listen to audio podcasts on Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio. And any other podcast that delivers audio podcasts. We are going to work on the spinoff of the podcast. Me and Joey G are working on it together as far as the design goes. But that spinoff will be more interview style. We're going to have a special guest on the podcast. I don't know. I've given dates of when we're going to put it out, but I need more time to think. Do the events happen during this week. With me personally, I need some time to recoup, recover, and deliver you guys the great content that you're expecting. What else can I say? True Players Podcast, June 27, 23rd, 2023. Makes 5 years. This podcast was born on June 27, 2018. At that time, my mother was still alive, breathing, kicking, and putting life into the one of the biggest families into the biggest family of Haiti. You could anyone else who want to argue with me about that, save it. You ain't gonna beat me when it comes to that. So, um, it's a lot of things happen over the 5 years. A lot of things happening. Met some new friends
Mm.
on doing podcasting. Live Neutral, Mars Entertainment, Down the Den podcast. Um, it's been a journey, a very happy journey. I thank God that I did it. I thank God I did it. Because I was a little bit scared. I was only doing audios, hiding behind the audio. You know what I'm saying? But my former coworker, my good friend, Dr. Sherry Andrews, gave me the motivation. Saying, "Why don't you do a video?" I said, "You know what? You're right. I'm gonna do the video." And then here we are.
Nice.
Here we are. So
Very
man,
nice.
we keep taking steps by steps. I don't give. People have critiqued my podcast. I don't agree with their critique. I don't care. I never did. All I know was when I was doing this podcast in 2018, I spoke to Sirius Radio for them to have my show on Sirius. So your opinion does not mean nothing. When Sirius can call and say possibly have your show have your show on their platform, that's enough. Plain and simple. So it is what it is. Shout out to Joey G. Shout out to Black Rose Prophecy. Shout out to everybody who's been on the podcast as a special guest host. I want to do more different. I do want to do different subjects. Just sports. We got the sports locked. I got Matt with me in my wild crazy inside the New York Jets. You know what I'm saying? What else? But now I want to talk about drivers on the road. That's one podcast I would love to do. Missy's going to join us. Missy's going to join us on the podcast about we call this episode "Dumb Drivers." Another episode about the do you believe a woman, the mindset of a woman today is toxic? That's another podcast I would love to do. But I don't want to do the podcast without I had a female on the show, because it's not fair for us men to dump and attack women by ourselves. Then they're gonna say that we're bitter. No, we want a female who has the courage to step on that stage with the True Players podcast and defend why women's mindset today is not toxic. But if it is toxic, speak your piece. And what can we do as a community to change that toxicity? Because that's what's holding us back together. That's why the powers that be got a whole chokehold on us, because we're so toxic in the mind. Toxic in the mind. You gotta break toxicity. We gotta break the wheel.
Yeah, for real.
But just make sure we don't get mad like Daenerys, okay? All right, that's all we ask. After we break the wheel.
Some people would say she was right, but we could say that for another episode.
On that note, guys, you could, if any comments, any suggestions, hit me up on trueplayerspodcast@gmail.com. That's TRUPLAYAZ podcast@gmail.com. It's your man Big Dom signing off. Also, before I sign off, if you have any ideas of the new name for the spinoff, let me know too. All right. So I'm taking all suggestions. But on that note, it's your man Big Dom signing off. Math signing off. I'll see y'all next episode. Tuesday.
Love and respect, everyone.
Definitely. Have a great night, people. Peace.